And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside.
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hairloss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Copeland's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. Let me bring Joe Tillman up. You were listening to and watching The Bald Truth, the hair loss show. That's what we do. We're here again on Tuesday night from our TBT studios in Los Angeles and TBT studios in Vancouver, British Columbia. Jesus.
Why do you even say it like that? What do you got to do?
Because I missaid it somehow. I fucked it up.
British Columbia.
Yeah. British Columbia. Guys in Canada, for crying out loud. Different country. And you guys are watching a broadcast or listening to a broadcast that essentially is syndicated worldwide at this point, which is interesting. Because when I started doing this about 22 years ago now, Jesus, it was on the radio. We had to do this through the airwaves. And I remember when I was on a FM talk station in Detroit, and we were getting Canadian callers because they were able to get the signal from I think it was 97.1 FM in Detroit. It was the coolest thing to me. It was like, we're international, man. This is fucking crazy. What?
So that's right, baby. And now, only 20 years later,
we're getting calls from New Zealand and Brazil and Australia.
No, half the screen is in Canada.
That's true.
That's what's amazing to me.
It's fucking crazy.
And we get phone calls from New Zealand, Australia, Norway, Germany, the UK. What's the furthest call we've gotten so far? Probably New Zealand.
Tasmania, I think.
Did we actually get a call from Tasmania?
We did.
I know I talked about a guy. Okay. Well, that would be it.
Actually, the furthest point? Let's see.
Wait a minute. My boy...
got somebody called from China once.
My boy Qatar. In the Middle East. China, Middle East, all that. Yeah. Close.
Anyway, guys, we were pimping ourselves out a little bit, but this is the Hair Loss Show. If you guys have any questions, any concerns, and I spoke to a reporter today about the latest and greatest of what's happening in this new field of hair loss and hair transplant surgery. And this reporter actually happened to ask some really smart questions, which is not typical, to tell you the truth.
No.
And I think that he was a little surprised at my candor, but very grateful for it, because I'm sure most of the people that he's speaking with are not necessarily telling him the truth about this $4 billion a year bullshit industry. But, there is this whole new hair wellness fucking con out there, in my view.
Hair wellness. That alone sounds like a crock of shit.
And, but what's interesting about it is that I believe that, anyone who reports on this recognizes that it's all about marketing. I can tell you how you make your hair well. You eat a normal diet where you're not malnourished. That is your only option. That's it. Genetics take over the rest. use a decent shampoo, maybe a conditioner to make the exterior, the dead part, look okay. But as far as it actually growing normally, looking, and any type of wellness, there's not a vitamin on the planet except maybe, little MSM or nutritional supplement or biotin has shown to help to some degree. But if you are genetically predisposed to losing your hair, none of that shit's going to do anything for you. I hate to say it.
Even MSM and biotin don't do anything like that. They don't help keep hair. They just make existing hair that you have grow faster. That's it.
Well, when I'm asked certain questions about nutritional supplements, and I wrote the book on that 20 years ago. Literally. I'm like, do you think that the American Hair Loss Association would even exist if you can just order a nutritional supplement that will stop your hair loss?
Do you think that there would be 250,000 people or however many it is that wake up every day discovering do you think that would be an ongoing issue?
Do you
if
think
you could just order the shit through the mail?
Do you think that there would be hair transplant surgery, companies investing in robots and PRP treatments and all the stuff that's coming out and science working on a cure? If a nutritional supplement that's in InStyle magazine could stop your hair loss? Nothing wrong with InStyle. I just did a interview with them, and they were pretty smart about their questions too. But it's amazing to me. It's the same thing repackaged over and over and over again.
Yeah.
That's it. And there are new suckers born, like you said, 250,000 of us every day in the United States, realizing for the first time that we're losing our fucking hair, and we fall for this bullshit. And then there's some fucking doctor out there who's in the industry that will take some money to endorse some bullshit. That's it.
Today it's even worse. Today it's even worse because you got everyday guys like you and me on I'm
going to go on Instagram now live to see what happens. Go ahead.
Slapping their own name on a Chinese-made laser cap and selling it out of their house as if it's anything different than every other laser product out there. You got guys putting together hair loss shampoos in their basement and shipping it out to people because people are fucking dumb enough to buy it.
I love the ebook guys. Do you really think that a guy in his mother's basement who is fucking promoting an ebook has found the fucking cure for hair loss?
Ebooks are the best.
I mean, think about that. I did a cursory search today on hair loss cures, and the shit that comes up is unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
This is 2019. People still fall for this shit. Here's the bottom line, people who are just joining me on Instagram, who are just joining us on YouTube, who are tuning in on iTunes Radio and iHeartRadio. If there was a cure for hair loss, I would not be on the air. There would be no American Hair Loss Association. If you can order something online that will cure you, a nutritional supplement, then Columbia University, University of Pennsylvania, Harvard, guys in Europe, all of these major universities would not be trying to work on this issue. If there was a cure for hair loss, it would be on the cover of Time magazine, and I would just go on my merry way and walk off into the fucking sunset with a much better head of hair without having to deal with all this fucking hairspray.
Because he'd be first in line. Like when it comes out, when the real thing comes out, you guys are behind us.
Yeah, I will know before any of you, and I would have already treated myself, and then I would be like, okay, let it rip. So when I speak to, and again, this was a really smart guy that I spoke to, and it's very rare to speak to a really kind of like well-honed, and when I mean like honed into the field reporter. I'm not going to say, from what resource, but most smart people, you think they realize it's all bullshit. But when you're really vulnerable, they'll try the bullshit. And that's why I feel... Say that again?
I said they'll try anything.
And honestly, I'm looking at text while I'm on my Instagram. Honestly, when I'm contacted by the media and there's certain questions asked, I really just try to put it out like, guys, come on, just look at who you're speaking with. None of that, you wouldn't even have to write an article like this if there was a cure. It would be like, okay, there's a cure, this is done. Not too many people are writing articles about, polio at this point. They figured that out. Guys, by the way, we're live, 888-659-3727. We just had an entire full board of phone calls. And then when we started to talk about the polio vaccine, and when we started to talk about some other things, you guys dropped off. Okay, calls are coming back. Great. 888-659-3727. We'll get your calls in 1 second. That's your cue, my sidekick.
Oh, I was going to say, it's like, well, I heard dead space, but I thought, or dead air, but it's like, okay, he's switching over to Instagram or something. So I didn't want to get cut off again for you to say, what was that? Repeat it. Is that what you're doing? Yeah. See,
motherfucker.
I'm watching.
All right, fuck you. Let's just take the fucking phone calls.
Let's do it.
Let's see who this
Bring
is.
it.
Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, how you doing? It's Tom from Las Vegas.
Tom from Las Vegas. What's happening, man?
How you doing? You guys are doing the Lord's work. I just want to say, yeah, I'm 36. I've been on Fin for 1 year now, and my hair improved I would say about 20%. So, but I just want to know if I should take minoxidil because it seems like it isn't getting any better after a year.
I'm going to give you some advice, man. And I really believe this. I'm not a physician, so take this in the spirit that it's meant, and also in the fact that I need to preface everything by saying I'm not a doctor. But in my experience, in the experience of countless people who have contacted this broadcast, we know that minoxidil is kind of like a Band-Aid. And it's great to kind of sometimes boost things or maybe save your hair for a while if you aren't doing well or can't really do well on finasteride. You can't tolerate it. But the reality is, once you introduce a new agent like minoxidil into your regimen, it's very possible you're going to go through a shed, a telogen effluvium. If you're maintaining your hair right now and you see a 20% improvement, I would not fuck with it if it were me. Because there is a chance of you getting worse before you get better, and in some cases getting worse and not getting better at all if you add minoxidil.
All right, that right there, I'm glad you answered that. I have very fine blonde hair. It looks pretty good now when I keep it short. I don't know where I am on the Norwood scale, but basically my hairline's pretty much perfect. It's just the crown's thin. Pretty much all of the hair started to thin at once. And it seems like if I look in the mirror, the sides look like they're almost about twice as thick. So, but the finasteride definitely helped it, though.
That's great. First of all, let me ask you, are you originally from New York?
Yeah, I'm originally from New York.
I can tell the way you said mirror. I say the same way. No offense, dude. No offense. Just, I just wanted to kind of embrace the fact that you're a New Yorker.
I don't know where I don't know where you'd put me on a Norwood scale. It's not like, my hairline's
Are you
pretty
on
good.
top as well, or do you start thinning in the crown?
It kind of sort of thinning all over the place. Definitely in the crown, definitely in the front. And what I notice is I still have a lot of hair, but a lot of it is miniaturized. I'm Eastern European, like Northern Russian. My hair is very light, and it seems like a lot of guys that have this kind of hair, it don't last. It looks good when we're young, but
here's the thing: the Norwood scale doesn't take into account diffuse loss. So, if you were to go see a specialist and they were to look at the top of your scalp and they could see a pattern of thinning, not loss, but just baldness, but just they could see the outline of one of the patterns, like let's just say a diffused, or let's just say a Norwood 6, then you would be unofficially classified as a diffused Norwood 6, meaning that you're thinning in the entire pattern of a Norwood 6, but you're not bald. And the good news with that is that your diffused hair loss sufferers are usually the best responders to medication. And I was going to say earlier that you've only been on the medication for a year. The efficacy in trials and in studies show that the efficacy shows improvement for up to 2 years before it plateaus. So I wouldn't be in a rush to add anything to it, not just because of what Spencer said, because it can introduce another or a potential shed, but your 20% might turn into 30% or even 40% in the next 12 months. So just stay the course and just see how it works out. Oh, yeah.
And one thing I noticed is before I started taking the finasteride, right, the sides would grow like pretty much twice as fast. Now the thick hairs that I do have on the top grow just as fast as the sides.
Yeah.
So
you are winning, my man. That's the thing. You are a finasteride or Propecia success story. The fact that you have essentially halted the progression of your hair loss, you're seeing regrowth and reversal of miniaturization. That's how it works, man. That's why I am 54 years old and still have hair on my head when I started to lose my hair at 21. This should not be the case.
Yeah, definitely. I honestly, I wish I would have started taking it maybe 3 years ago, Yeah. But
look, man, you can't worry about the past. You're on it now, and you're not having. I'm assuming you're not having any adverse side effects, right?
No, very slight sexual side effects, and but nothing major. It's pretty good,
Like when you say slight, like you're not shooting ropes anymore, or you're having a problem with sex.
Maybe not really so much as, but when I did have a girlfriend, if I did have sex, maybe the third time it would be a little tougher,
Right. Well, that's not so bad.
But it's worth it to me, and I don't think there's nothing wrong trying to fight it, So,
dude, I'm fighting it to the death. I will hold on to every fucking hair in my head if possible, and you're going to have to take this medication out of my cold, dead hands because it has changed my life. So I don't give a shit about what anybody says when they're like, oh, you're a Merck shill and you're talking about Propecia, it's a dangerous drug, whatever it is. You know what? In my experience, it has been a positive, life-changing drug for me.
Life-saving.
Life-saving, exactly.
Definitely. Yeah, because when I went to a dermatologist, she gave me the script. She's like, oh, you got to go on, Rogaine or Minoxidil. You should jump on that right away. You know what? To me, Minoxidil just seems too much of a hassle, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, it is, and I would say that sadly, and this doesn't go for all dermatologists, but most dermatologists, even though their specialty is skin, hair, nails, they're supposed to know about this stuff. They basically just parrot what they read or what they're taught. And the reality is most of them will prescribe both finasteride and minoxidil simultaneously to use kind of like in a synergistic way. But that makes absolutely, if you really think about it, makes no sense, because don't you want to know what's working for you?
Yeah, I was wondering too, like if you did take minoxidil and then you got off of it, just say you did get some gains from minoxidil, would the finasteride keep the gains, or pretty much no? Because someone said the hairs that you gain from finasteride get dependent on it.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. You know, I weaned myself off of minoxidil. I was on it for a long time, and I weaned myself off. It took me, I did it about a year and a half, I'd say. And I had no effluvium or no shed. I don't attribute that to being on finasteride. I think it's just because I really got off of it so slowly. Because I've known guys who've been on both, who've stopped using minoxidil, and they go through a tremendous shed. So I think it depends on the person.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you guys taking my call. One last thing, sometimes it's kind of hard to gauge my hair loss, because sometimes I'll take a photo and my hair looks like shit. You know, I have that like I said, that blonde hair, and it just like the light will shine through it. Other times I'll take a photo and it looks thick as hell. So, you know what I mean?
That's life.
Other than that,
that's life dealing with hair loss. And there are times when I see myself on camera or in photos, and I'm just like, Jesus, I look fucking good. And then there are times when I'm like, man, I don't want this photo out there for public consumption. Does not look good. Flat head. I can see a little bit of thinning part. You know, either I didn't use enough shampoo that day, or I used the wrong shampoo. That's part of it, man. It's part of the game.
There's also the length of your hair, if you're suffering from loss, will influence how thin it can look. Like if you're not bald and you just thinning, or in your case, diffuse loss, the length greatly influences how thin you actually look. And that's something that only you can determine based on experimentation. But if you found a look that you like now, as far as like the length, and you're saying that it looks fuller, that might be your sweet spot. But you can have multiple sweet spots with longer or shorter hair, depending on what you're willing to do to find out.
Yeah, for me, what it is I basically shave the sides on like a skin fade and keep a 2 on the top, and it looks great, you know? Like, when I keep it like that, the real fine baby hairs, sometimes it looks good, you know? So that's what I'm keeping.
Right on.
Well, listen, man, I'm really glad. I appreciate the call. I'm glad you're doing well on finasteride. It's always...
Hey, I appreciate it, guys.
What was that?
Oh, what'd you guys say?
No, I was going to say that, you know, it's really important that guys who have good experiences call the program, because all of the bad stuff is really, you know, that's the stuff that's the loudest on the internet. And, you know, we want to create some balance, because this is a drug that has worked for millions of people who have had relatively either little to no adverse side effects, but they're not coming out online and beating their drums about it. So I think there needs to be balance, and it's great to hear guys who've had success.
Oh, okay. Now, do you think I should go to a doctor and get my testosterone
that
checked?
didn't give you leeway didn't give you permission to ask another question, did it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll let you guys.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm just busting your balls. Go ahead.
As far as do you guys think I should be going to a doctor and getting my testosterone checked and stuff like that? Because I've just been taking this medicine for a year, haven't been back to the doctor. You know, my health insurance don't cover. You know, so.
Well, I mean, according to, and again, we're both not physicians, but according to most prescribing physicians, that's unnecessary unless you sense there's something going on in your body. You should always be under a doctor's care, but most guys who are on finasteride, who are under a doctor's care, are not constantly getting their hormones checked.
Okay. Hey, I think I appreciate the advice. You guys are great. Thanks.
All right, man. Listen, good luck. Thanks for the call.
All right, bye.
The phone number, 888-659-3727. Guys who are watching this on Instagram, the few guys that are, people that are, this is kind of jerry-rigged for Instagram. So you don't see the entire studio. It's just me. You don't see Joe. I have to kind of press my monitors on and off, which is kind of a pain in the ass, just so you guys can hear the callers. So you're going to hear some weird noises that you normally would not hear on the air or on resources like YouTube or Guys from Queens Network, or, of course, on any of the audio resources. But, eventually we'll figure it out where we can actually broadcast the way we're broadcasting on all the other resources directly through Instagram, but I still have not figured that out yet. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
It's Mordy from South Florida.
Mordy! How are you, man? What's with the down talk?
What down talk?
It's like a down speak that you have.
I do?
Like you end it with Mordy from South Florida.
Oh, I don't know. Trying to mix it up, I suppose.
How you feeling, buddy? What's going on? What's new?
We're entering into the into the high holiday season. So you guys, I gotta do this because I do this with everyone. If there was anything that I did to cause you guys grief or upset you in any way over the last 12 months, I want to apologize sincerely. As a matter of fact, I did lose my cool on this channel a number of times, and for that I really am sorry, and I just want to reiterate that.
I appreciate you for willing to and feeling the Jewish guilt to atone for your sins, and you are more than I accept your apology. How's that?
Well, thank you, Spencer.
As do
yeah. So it's funny. Great. Listen. So I was thinking about.
He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah. Great. Whatever.
Like, yeah, great. Good for you for accepting my apology. Anyway.
No, I'm very pleased that you did. Believe me, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you because you cut out for a second.
You're a friend of the show, and we love you. You make us laugh, and you make us think, and we're glad to have you call in when you do. So glad to hear from you again.
Cool, man. So what I wanted to mention was I think it was on Friday. Spencer was talking about things to sell out with, and the thing that occurred to me is that on numerous occasions we talk about the dangers associated with generics, and it would be really cool if you guys could sell your own generic like the Hims people, because if you sold a generic, I would trust your generic. I would trust it over Merck's, quite frankly, especially if you said you used it. So
it's interesting that you say that, because I was speaking to somebody today about these companies, and the reality is they do not. None of these companies sell their own generic. They repackage generic products, and the reality is that it's all about the bottom line. So they have a resource. That resource can change at any time given the pricing structure. So if they find a cheaper generic, say in China or in another pharmaceutical company in India, that is the generic that they're going to use. And that's the way the pharmaceutical companies or the pharmacies work in general. So my concern about all of these companies is there is no consistency. The way that I would go about it is find a consistent generic, and even if the price goes up or down, let the consumer know that that's the price of having consistency. And that's it. So say we decided to work with Teva or another company that we knew had a really close molecular structure with consistently, high standards in their manufacturing process, then people would have to be willing to pay a little bit more. The problem is, what was that?
And that would be worth it. But there's also, like when you get into these contracts, there's price locks. So even if their cost goes up and down, fluctuating because of whatever, your price remains the same.
That's a good point.
Meaning me, the subscriber, you mean?
Well, eventually
if I went to... Go ahead.
Well, the way it works is this. So if I wanted to get in touch with a manufacturer of anything, in this case, generic finasteride, I could say, all right, this is what I'm willing to do. These are the numbers I foresee to produce for the first year. I want to have this discounted price. We'll have a price lock on this, and if it's all good for them, then papers are signed. And even if their pricing fluctuates for their cost, the price to me is the same, which means the price to you is the same.
All right, guys, before thanks for that, Joe. Thanks for that, Joe. Don't make me laugh. I'm going to sign off of the 3 people who are watching us on Instagram. And if you want to actually watch the broadcast, you can go to thebaldtruth.com, click on Watch Live, and you can check out all the other resources, whether it's iTunes Radio, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio, Guys from Queens, Joe Tillman's YouTube page, which is youtube.com/hair transplant mentor, to watch the rest of the broadcast. And we're going to end this on Instagram.
Bye,
okay.
Instagram. All right, we're back with Mordy.
Back with Mordy. Live with Mordy. Tuesdays with Mordy.
Tuesday with Mordy, that's true. But I mean, if I were to, buy Spencer's finasteride, like let's say that there's a spencersfinasteride.com, right? I wouldn't mind sucking up a little bit of price fluctuation, because when I go to the drugstore, I don't know what I'm going to pay, and it does change there as well.
Well, here's the beauty of it, and this is when I talk about selling out. When the time is right, the right product will carry one of my trademarks. I'm not going to have to manufacture shit, and it'll be a product that will be something that I know is consistent. Period. When that time comes. Do I want to go out there and fucking manufacture something and deal with, a drop shipping company and dealing with this, that? I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. You know what I want to do? When it's time to sell out, I want to sit at the beach bar and not think about anything.
I hear you, man.
And that's it. And that time is getting very close. I have a little bit more time now because we're about to have shit about the hair transplant industry written in stone to really save a lot of lives. And that is, something has already been written in stone, and more stuff is coming out. So at the very least, mainstream medical resources, including certain university resources, are going to be able to provide information to consumers about the reality of surgical hair restoration and what to watch out for. No one's been able to accomplish that before. This is happening now. I'm excited about that. We'll get that done. We'll save that into the field. That's going to take about a year and a half before I can get out of this shit. And then maybe I'll sell out with something like you're talking about, or a laser comb or whatever.
Yeah.
And I will move to Costa Rica and start my own dive company.
Yeah. Joe, you're still going to have to do the show, man.
Okay, from a dive boat.
Whatever.
I'll create my own dive bell that I broadcast a show from 30 feet down.
Yeah. I mean,
the wet
now
ball.
I heard that if you change the barometric pressure on your head, it makes your hair grow. That's what I heard.
So basically, you're talking about actually someone was talking about that for a while. Who was it that was doing that? Going into those what are those chambers after you get out of diving so you don't get rickets?
Hyperbaric chamber.
Yeah, hyperbaric. Yeah, hyperbaric.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I know Alan Salmon was sending patients into hyperbaric chambers for healing.
I could sell those. Slap an American Hair Loss Association seal on them. Boom. It'll basically just be a hyperbaric helmet.
There you go.
Steel.
Just fucking.
You just reduce the pressure; it sucks the hair right out of your head.
That's right. These guys will be walking around with like these things that look like diving helmets from like the early 1900s. You don't think I would sell those? Those would go like hotcakes in this market.
I was thinking about the pressure thing that you just mentioned, Morty, and I think that the only reason why someone would think that would work is because with less pressure, compressing your body, you have more blood flow throughout the top of your scalp as well as other areas, and that would lead potentially to an increase in hair growth, because that's basically how minoxidil works and other vasodilators. So I think that would be the very loose logic behind why someone would say that, which ultimately would be garbage.
Of course it would.
Ultimately, it's
it's so much. There's so much crazy stuff that I've seen out there. It's unbelievable.
Dude, walk into any doctor's office who's a member of the ISHRS. Is that right? What happened there? Jesus Christ.
Oh.
And see the bullshit that they're selling.
But by that logic, Morty, you could hop in your car from Florida and drive to Denver, move to Denver, where you're a mile high. It's less pressure on your body, and poof, you'll grow more hair.
There you go.
Even better, go to one of these conferences and go to the vendors' booths and see the crap that is fucking being sold.
What happened to our feed?
It's fixed now.
Yes, it is. Okay.
Yeah. And see what's being sold.
So
you go out, you walk in. There's a conference. Someone's talking about stem cells or whatever it is, and you walk out, and some guy's waving a fucking 5-finger, portable laser cap at you, saying how much you can get, what kind of a profit you can make in your practice with this bullshit, alleged bullshit.
It's so many crazy things. Like I saw this one thing where it's like this fucking pump band that you wrap around your head that like pumps up the fucking borders of your head and like reduces the pressure, the intracranial pressure, or some other bullshit like this.
I've got one.
Wow. There you go.
I can open up a
bicycle tire on your head.
I can open up a hair loss product and gadget museum.
Fucking Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, man.
I'm telling you, man.
One every minute.
The hair loss freak show.
I like that.
This industry it doesn't matter. And I was talking to this guy today. I'm like, it could be 1800. It doesn't it's like people standing on the back of their fucking stage coaches selling snake oils. It's the same fucking thing.
Oh, yeah.
Very little has changed. People are talking about, this whole, I get in such trouble when I say this. This whole hair banking thing, it is, in my view, it's a laughing stock. To even be,
it's utter nonsense.
In my view, to be connected to that aspect of that company it's ridiculous. And I do not believe that I believe there are certain people who are connected to that company that may not think that this is the greatest thing in the world, but they may just be going along with it because they know that the company needs to raise money or earn money.
I think some people have gone along with it because friends of theirs in the industry pressured them to join it, and they felt kind of compelled to be a part of it because there is a chance that something might come of it, and they want to be a part of it, but also because, well, my friends want me to be a part of it, and I can help out somehow, and that's it. They don't really believe in it.
So I'll lend my name to people essentially being, in my view, conned out of thousands of dollars to bank their hair cells.
And it's residuals per month. It's like it's crazy. Those types of services, in quotes. It's complete and utter insanity.
I got to make this clear. This is obviously just my opinion, and I think that it makes no sense, and I think that it diminishes the real theory of donor dominance and the fact that you can be a 60-year-old man and have a robust, at least that's what's being sold to you, a robust hair transplant, meaning that hairs will grow as robustly as they would have if you're 30. That flies in the face of that logic. And these are hair transplant surgeons. So in my view, if you're transplanting anybody over the age of 50, then you may not be doing them a great service if you don't believe that those cells are as viable, whether it's for reproduction or for acting as donor. It's all fucking bullshit, man, in my opinion. And if I were a physician, I would be embarrassed. Fucking embarrassed. But since I'm not a doctor, I can jump on board. I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, but you got a good heart, Spence. You've been doing this for as long as you have been. You told us yourself. Your dad told you that there was something wrong with you because you didn't want to make the money. You wanted to do the right thing. And I know you're going to continue to do that. That's why I trust you, man.
Say it again.
He does it for chicks.
Yeah, I do it for pussy, man. That's why I'm sitting in this chair. Some poor girl that knows me is just rolling her eyes right now. Or 20 of them, but whatever.
My wife is rolling her eyes right now.
Your wife is rolling her eyes. Yeah.
My wife is rolling her eyes right now.
Actually, she's going like this. I can see that. I can see why he does that.
Makes sense.
Makes sense.
Oh.
Women get it. It's like being a bartender. You know, you're in this position of power.
Oh.
But anyway, listen. No, I don't do what I do is not completely altruistic. I figured out a way to earn money by telling the truth. No one else has been able to do that. Joe came along a little later. Now he's doing it. But no one else has really been able to do that. And they still can't fucking figure it out. Which is good.
Well,
I like being, it's important in my career that I was always kind of underestimated in what I could accomplish and what I can do. That kind of gave me a completely free path to do whatever the fuck I wanted to do and earn a good living doing it. So fuck it. Mordy, thank you so much for the call. You sound well. And, you know, you got any plans for the holidays? You going back to New York?
I'm sticking around here. Actually, they got me to read. I'm going to read a Torah portion on the first day, so I get to use my singing voice.
Wow.
That's going to be fun. Yeah,
cool.
And yeah, been studying it like crazy. And yeah, as far as New York is concerned, it's looking more and more like I'm probably going to make my way back there at some point. Florida's just kind of gotten old. But yeah, man, no, I want you, if I don't speak to you before then, have a great Rosh Hashanah, and I'm hoping that this coming year for you and for the Bald Truth will be the year that you turn around this industry and save even more people like myself from going under the knife with a butcher. Because there are a lot of butchers out there. So
I appreciate that, man. Lashana Tova. Thank you so much for the well wishes, and you've atoned for your sins.
Well, I'm glad. You guys have a good night. I'm going to keep on watching. Take care.
Man. Take it easy.
Thanks, Mordy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
888-659-3727. You know what's really fucked up? I forgot it was going to be Rosh Hashanah like on Monday.
Uh-oh. Atone for your sins.
Dude, I do that every fucking day.
Or whatever. I do that every day.
Every day. I have to say sorry to somebody.
So speaking of these bullshit contraptions and devices,
yeah.
I think it's a good time to segue into the special topic of this episode of The Bald Truth, talking about a new potential hair loss solution. It's non-surgical and it's non-medical, meaning you're not using any sort of medication topically or orally or, thank God, intravenously. It is simply electro-stimulation of your scalp. And this is something, I've heard about this before. I've heard, like a friend of mine told me that when he first started losing his hair, he remembered sitting in a room with other guys feeling and looking like an asshole because he's got these electric therapy helmets on his head, just like everyone else in the room, getting shocked. And he thought at the time, I'm actually going to save my hair. And
sure.
Of course, it was a complete farce. But this is like actually a thing. It's in many different online journals, but I'm reading from Science News, ScienceDaily.com. Electric tech could help reverse baldness, and this is from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. The summary of this is reversing baldness could someday be as easy as wearing a hat, thanks to a non-invasive, low-cost hair growth stimulating technology. Now, it's not so much the idea of electrical shocks; it's the way that it's delivered without a battery pack.
Oh,
because
you're moving. It's self-propelled.
It's self-propelled. Yeah, basically, what's exciting about this, as far as like development-wise, is that the electricity. It's very low-level electricity shocks or treatment. It's not like high voltage or anything. The electricity is being generated by your own movement. So you got these sensors all over your body that, while you move, are generating electricity, like those watches that perpetual watches where they're charged and powered by the movement of your hand. That's the same concept behind this. So you wear something under your hat, and there might be some sort of wire running up to it, but there's no battery, and that's the problem with these like laser caps. They'll have a battery pack that lasts. I don't think they last very long, but you got to stick that on your belt, and you got to run the cables up the back of your shirt or something up to the back of the cap, and it's kind of bulky and it's just kind of pain in the ass. This is not going to need that. Now, is there any sort of real efficacy with this? Well, just like every other fucking hair loss solution that's ever been announced in any scientific lab, apparently they grew hair on a mouse. That's it.
Dude, they are great at fucking growing hair on rodents. I can tell you that. Science has gotten that shit down pat.
If mice were bald and if mice were cognizant to actually care, you could go fishing, man. That would be it. Cure baldness in mice.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it's still elusive for us. So, as with everything else out there, it is something that is in the future. This is something, it's not even started human trials yet. They're hoping to start human trials, I think, next year. And the patent for this has been applied for the energy harnessing ability alone, not for, I think that's correct, not because it's actually good at growing hair. Like I said, it grew hair on bald mice, which was surprising as far as like how much was grown, and that's great, but we're not mice. Well, some of you are. Some of us are. But that's it. So that's the latest on hair loss development in the news. This was a legit story, and who knows? Something might be around the corner, but I doubt it. There you go. Back to you, Spencer.
There are a lot of legit stories. A lot of media picks up all kinds of fucking so-called legit stories. Mm-hmm. Talking about hair cloning and banking, CNN picked up a hair banking story almost, I'd say, 15 years ago. There's a guy that set up a hair bank essentially in his backyard in a bunker. And he wasn't asking for cells or people didn't have to go to the hospital. Basically, he just said, you send in clippings of your hair, we will bank them for future cloning. CNN picked that shit up.
Wow. And people were sending in their hair.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure.
They were sending in their hair, and CNN covered the fucking story. It was a news piece on CNN.
That's hilarious.
This is how it goes. This is why anybody, first of all, this is why I love this fucking country. Because anybody can make a living. First of all, if you're homeless in this country and you're not completely mentally ill, then I'm sorry. There's no reason for that. That's it. You lost your fucking job I'm sorry, this is America, United States of America. Unless you are severely mentally ill, there is no reason, or disabled, no reason whatsoever you cannot make a living in this incredible country.
I want to get back to this because Soren in the chat room says, Joe, how do you know this is legit, not just another company making claims? Well, I don't know it's legit. I'm just reading a story, but the background of this, you got the I'll read a little bit of this. See, quote, I think this will be a very practical solution to hair regeneration, says Zhudong Wang, a professor of material science and engineering at University of Wisconsin-Madison, which is a really legit school, especially for engineering. Wang and his colleagues published a description of the technology in the journal ACS Nano, which is a legit journal, peer-reviewed. Based on devices that gather energy from a body's day-to-day motion, the hair growth technology stimulates the skin with gentle, low-frequency electric pulses, which coax dormant follicles to reactivate hair production. And it's very specific. It says, just like with several things out there, it says the devices don't cause hair follicles to sprout anew in smooth skin. Instead, they reactivate hair-producing structures that have gone dormant. Kind of contradictory, but that means they could be used as intervention for people in the early stages of pattern baldness, but they would not bestow cascading tresses to someone who has been as bald as a billiard ball for several years. And then it goes on to talk about the Dr. Wang. He's a world expert in design and creation of energy harvesting devices. He has pioneered electric bandages that stimulate wound healing and a weight loss implant that uses gentle electricity to trick the stomach into feeling full. And it goes on. So you can actually go to University of Wisconsin-Madison and look this up, I believe, but it's got journal references and everything. So at least there's some sort of legit science behind it.
Can you say his name again for me?
Let's see. I'm going to do this like the way Rodney Dangerfield would say it. Shudong Wang. No offense.
Yeah, Dr. Wang.
No offense. Yeah, it's a good woman. Yeah. Anyway.
Guys, the phone number is 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
This is Dan Black.
Dan Black, you just gave out your whole fucking name on the radio. What's happening?
I'm sorry about that.
I don't care.
I'm new to the show.
Dan Black, where are you calling from?
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And what's your social security number?
You almost did it.
What's happening?
I had a transplant through the hair club, and the transplant was
sorry to
hear that. Bad.
Sorry to hear that.
Really bad. But the scar was actually not bad. I was actually impressed. But the problem with it was so thin that it looked horrible. I mean, it looked like I was receding.
It's not difficult to get a decent scar if you're not taking out much tissue and you're not moving much hair.
What I did was, it was so bad that Hair Club actually they refunded me to get another transplant. And I went to a doctor, and
can I ask you a question? I don't mean to cut you off, but what year did this happen? When did you have your hair transplant with Hair Club?
Julie, what year did I do this?
Now Julie Black. We got everybody's name from Wisconsin.
Sorry,
Milwaukee.
Sorry.
Milwaukee. Yeah, go ahead.
2001. 2012.
Oh shit! And it wasn't even the Dark Ages.
Yep,
yeah.
and I went to a doctor, and he started my transplant, and the transplant was so bad. I think he cut so much out that he when he tried to stitch it back, he ripped my scalp. I mean, he just ripped my scalp.
This guy's not. You have not had good luck, my man.
Yeah, when he tried to stitch it back.
What was the name of the doctor that you went to the second time?
Dr. Panine.
Really?
Really?
Yep.
Wow, because he's actually really good at what he does in general. I mean, this is the first complaint I've ever heard of.
When he tried to stitch it back, he pulled so hard he could not. It was like there was not enough.
Your scalp wasn't elastic enough.
It was just bad. And then when he squeezed it together, I felt a rip in my scalp, and when he started to sorry.
Go ahead. Speak.
When he started to
suture it,
heal.
Okay.
It was a 3 inch by 2 inch bald spot, It was so bad that I was scared because of like, oh my God, I got a 3-inch by 2-inch bald spot. Is this going to grow back? He's like, oh yeah, it's going to go back. Well, it didn't.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's see if we can find a silver lining. As far as the repair of the original procedure, was Dr. Panine able to make the recipient area where the hair is growing look better for you?
Well, he offered me to do it, to come back and
No, I'm not talking about the repair. I'm talking about after your first surgery when you felt that rip, as far as the growing of the hair that was transplanted.
First surgery with Dr. Panine.
First surgery with Dr. Panine, the one that he was correcting from the hair club. How did that first surgery go besides the complication in the back?
He did it. The front,
yes,
was great.
Yes.
Okay.
Say that again.
It looked awesome. The front of my hairline looked beautiful.
Because that is
even to this day, it looked beautiful.
Sadly, that is when I hear something like this, I mean, and I think this is a cautionary tale for anybody. Even in the best hands, complications and mistakes do happen. Dr. Panine, I have to say, for all the years that I've known this guy, I have never heard any, I mean, everyone's got a complication. Everyone's got one bad case. But it does speak to his skill set when you say that at least the work itself was beautiful and that to this day it's beautiful. So that's good for me to hear. I appreciate that. Tell me about the complication and tell me about how he fixed that.
It is I can't shave my hair in the back. I have to keep it long because like my girlfriend cuts my hair, and it has to be. I have to keep it long because I'll have a bald spot.
Well, yeah, you had a complication with your scar. There wasn't enough tension. It was either there was some miscalculation. Trust me, he was surprised when he tried to close your fucking wound, and he was unable to close it. So it was a surprise to him as well. However, and I'm going to let Joe speak to this, these are cases that can possibly be repaired, and you might get to the point where you're a lot more comfortable with it. Joe, I'll let you talk.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify. I just want to clarify something with you. When you had your first procedure with Hair Club, you said that the donor scar looked fantastic, although the front, which is why you're getting the procedure to begin with, was really thin. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So before I get into just to explain how these things work in more detail, I want to say that I've never met Dr. Panine. I know nothing about Dr. Panine except for what I've seen online. I know he's an IAHRS accepted member, and what I've seen online is so good that we don't work together. But anytime I've got someone in the Chicago area asking me about where to go, I send them to Dr. Panine, because I think I normally don't even talk about other doctors that I haven't really investigated. He's one of the few doctors that I send patients to just to at least investigate based on what I see online. So, but I have no relationship with him whatsoever. I just want to get that out there.
Yep.
So what you're dealing with now is a great result in the front. You're really happy with that. Your words were beautiful, which I can really appreciate. But your donor scar or the donor wound, when he took out that donor strip and then tried to close it, you were saying that there was too much tension for the wound to be closed 100%, and then the resulting scar formation from that leaves you with a small bald spot in the donor zone. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Here's the reason why that may have happened based on my experience, and I will preface this by saying that every doctor out there, no matter how good they are, no matter what their reputation is, I've seen it from the best or from some of the best. What you went through is something that almost every one of the top doctors in the world that have performed years and years of great FUT work have experienced themselves. And what that is when they get a patient that has been to another clinic and they have to deal with a non-virgin donor area. They're more difficult to judge and gauge as far as the laxity and where the laxity changes, because even on a virgin scalp, the laxity of the donor zone is not consistent all the way around. There are going to be some areas that the laxity is greater, and in some areas where the laxity is reduced or not nearly as good as the rest of the areas, and in places in between. So when you have a donor scar, because it's not a virgin donor area to begin with, that complicates it even further, because there can be underlying scar tissue that is greater than what is visible on the surface of the donor tissue. In other words, the scar may look great, but there can be significant scarring underneath if the doctor from the first procedure was doing significant undermining. Okay? Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay, so real quick description. When a strip is removed, it's not simply, in some cases, it's not simply cutting the upper side and the lower side and then pulling out the strip. In order to pull the strip together, the doctor might have to undermine and lift up the tissue from the underlying layers of the, we'll call it underlying layers of the skin, because there are multiple layers. And in this case, he's separating the epidermis and dermis from the gallia, which separates all that tissue from your actual skull, okay, and the muscles underneath. So there are multiple layers, and when you separate from the gallia, it increases how much laxity there is so that they can close that wound more easily. So if your previous doctor had done that, then your tension was deceptive. The laxity was deceptive. So when Dr. Panine went in and he was cutting into the tissue and taking out that old scar and getting the hair, that wound could have popped open because of the surprise amount of tension that was underneath that donor scar. Okay? So when that happens, situations like yours occur where there's too much of an opening and you can't really close it the way you want to, and then that wound heals through secondary intention, which means it's an open wound healing. And there is, coming to the end of this, there is a way to potentially address that. Okay, it's not always a perfect solution. Well, there is no such thing as a perfect solution for repair cases, but you might want to talk to the doctor, if you haven't already, about FUE into that scar tissue. And with multiple passes, that might be the answer for you.
I did actually do that, and
okay.
It didn't take.
Oh, so you actually had another surgery where he put FUE into the scar?
Yes, and it didn't take.
Okay, how many grafts did he move?
1,500.
1,500 grafts into scar tissue?
Yes.
Exactly how big is the scar?
It's possible to actually does it grow in a donor area?
I'm not questioning your memory. I just want to make sure. Are you sure he moved 1,500 follicular units, full grafts, into your 2-inch by 3-inch, whatever size scar you said you had?
Yes.
Huh. And nothing grew?
Well, no, some grew, but not enough to stop the balding. I'm just wondering.
I'm at a loss. I'm really trying to think about that, because that is an excessive number. Like, you would have to. That's the number of grafts that you would move if you had a 4-inch, 5-inch by 1-inch scar across the back of your head.
3-inch by 2-inch. I mean, it was bald. It was horrible.
So it's 3 inches wide by 2 inches, 3 inches long by 2 inches in length? Or are you talking about or are you talking about centimeters?
3 inches. It was 3 inches by 2 inches.
So you're talking about the size of Joe's junk. But I'm just kidding. You're talking about
When did you see my junk? Come
Dude, that would be his entire scalp. Okay, I get it.
I'm just wondering if I waited. It's been like 2 or 3 years, and I'm wondering if it can happen. You know, now that I weighed it, is it a good chance that it could work now?
I need to ask you a favor, and I don't know if Joe wants to be involved in this at all, but I would love to see an image of the back of your head.
Well, I could show you.
Okay, would you mind sending that, Joe? Will you give out to your?
Okay.
Yeah.
Send it to me.
Yes.
Send it to admin, ADMIN.
Okay, let me write it.
Okay.
One
I was
second,
doing
let me turn
some quick math in my head, and you convert the inches into centimeters roughly. You're looking at like 100 grafts per square centimeter for scar tissue.
Okay, it's admin by what?
Admin at hairtransplantmentor.com.
Hair what?
Hair transplant.
This is going to be a good segment.
mentor.com. Are you watching the show on YouTube?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to type it in the chat room there. So admin at hairtransplantmentor.com. Did I spell that right? Yeah, there you go. That's it. So it's in the chat room. Just copy paste that into your email program of choice, attach the images, and fire off.
All right, 1 second. Damn it.
Hey, watch the cursing.
Sorry.
I'm totally kidding. So this happened, what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
I have one more question. How old of a man are you?
About 2 years ago, and I basically wanted to wait.
Can I ask you how old you
figure
are?
Out. I'm 50.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I mean, this is an unusual case. It's an unusual story. I'm glad that at least the front of your head looks good now, which is a big plus, especially coming from having an initial bad hair transplant. So at least go ahead, sir.
The back of my hair looks good only because I keep it long.
I didn't say the back. I said I'm glad that the front
of
your head looks good, because coming back from what you described of your initial hair transplant and being repaired to the point where you're satisfied in the front, it's not that common. So that's a good, that you won in that respect. So that's a good thing. And the fact that you have enough hair to cover up the complication, that's great too, even though you would prefer to cut it shorter. So in general, when it comes to as far as complications and a bad hair transplant, you are one of the luckier ones out there. So I want you to put that into perspective when you're thinking about what you've been through. Now, Joe, did you receive?
Oh, I do, big time.
Good, I'm glad. Did you see the image?
Nothing.
Okay.
Have you sent it yet?
No, I haven't. I'm actually just copied it. I'll send it maybe an hour or two.
I'm sorry. Well, time is money, buddy. We're on the air now. We want to look at it while you're on the air with us.
Okay, 1 second. Let me send it. It's just that I love the hair transplant. I just want to know if hair will grow in it if I do it again.
Well,
we don't. No one knows that.
The easy answer is no one knows, and that's the honest answer. I can say, however, from experience, that hair does grow in scar tissue, but it doesn't grow 100%. Now, it also depends on what kind of hair was being used. Was it, if you use scalp hair, if you use beard hair, if you use chest hair, you have a decreasing likelihood of survivability and success, depending on which type of hair you use. So with scalp hair, usually that works best. Beard hair works second best. Chest hair works third best, and everything else is a waste of time.
Well,
and as you move down as you move down that line, you've got diminishing returns. So, did he use scalp hair or beard hair?
Scalp hair. He basically told me that I could. I still have enough hair to take it out of the back.
Okay.
So,
still now, or that was before that surgery for the scar tissue?
Yes.
So should I take a nap while you guys finish?
Yes. What? I asked you two questions. Was it after the FUE surgery or before the FUE surgery that he said you have more hair in the back to move?
Before. Well,
Before.
I
Okay.
had the FT. I had the FUT, and it was thin, and I contacted him, and I basically did a FUT again, and that's when it happened. So now I want to, you know, what they do.
Okay. Stop right there. Stop right there. So this last surgery that we've been talking about, where he put 1,500 grafts into that scar tissue, that was another strip?
Yes.
Where did he where did the strip come from? Did he take it from one of the sides?
No, he cut the back again, just like the first time.
How many scars do you have in the back of your scalp?
One, but he cut out the same area that he did before.
So where did those 1,500 grafts go?
In the front.
Okay, I'm lost. Spencer?
Basically, I
stopped
had
listening.
the first transplant. He cut out. He did it in the front. It was thin. It was real thin. So I contacted Dr. Panine. He did it again. He cut the same.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm sorry that if we're being short with you, we're just trying to understand. So, what you just described this second is your first hair transplant was with a hair club. It did not go well.
Yep.
You had a strip procedure done, and it did not grow well in the recipient area. Then you went and you got a refund from the hair club, and you contacted another physician. You found Dr. Panine. And
yes.
Dr. Panine went in for your second surgery to repair the first bad surgery from the hair club. Now, the recipient area of the second surgery, your repair surgery, which is performed by Dr. Panine, grew robustly and wonderfully, and you're very happy with the aesthetics of the result. However,
yes,
you felt that there was a complication in the back. You felt that he had trouble closing the scar, which then left a increased scar tissue and a large scar. So then you went back to have that repaired with Dr. Panine, and you're saying that he took another strip out, moved 1,500 more grafts to put into the scar tissue, and not all of that took.
That's correct.
Okay, so I got it. That's the story, Joe. You get it?
No, I don't, because he just said that 1,500 went into the front.
No, yeah, the 15. Yep, it went to the front, but the back, the scar was bad.
Okay, Spencer, all yours. I don't understand what's going on. I'm still waiting on the photos.
Okay, send your photos, dude. And in the interim, I'm gonna play a little song that I haven't played in a long time by the Insinuators.
Some people tell you you're losing your hair. To them it's a joke and they just don't care. You never used to fear a thing, but now you're afraid of the rain and wind. Everyone else still has a hair, except for you, it's just not fair. But we know a guy who's on the air. He's the man who knows all about hair. Spencer's Bald Truth Radio Show. He'll give you the facts that you need to know. Spencer's Bald Truth Radio Show.
Go, Spencer, go, Spencer, go, go, go!
How do you stop it? Don't say you can't. Don't call it quits. You can get a transplant, and the bad doctors and phony give you the facts that you need to know. Spencer's Bald Truth Radio Show.
Go, Spencer, go, Spencer, go, go, go!
Spencer's Bald Truth Radio Show.
These guys actually produced this like 10 years ago.
That's hilarious. So I still don't have an email.
You're kidding me. I gave you guys so much fucking time.
Hey, man. I'm just clicking refresh. That's all I can do.
Oh, my God.
All right. Maybe this will be a good follow-up for next week.
Yeah.
We'll sometime this week.
Caller, did you send it or no? Caller.
Hello?
He hung up.
Mr. Black?
Julie? All right, guys. Mr. Black, feel free to call back next time. Send the images, and we can help you. There's a good chance we'll be able to give you some good advice. Maybe he was nervous when he was talking to you, Joe. I think you made him nervous.
Yes, it was my fault.
Usually
I made him nervous. Anyway.
Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello.
Oh, hey. Wow, that was brutally painful to listen to that last caller.
I'm so sorry. You know, we really do our best to make sure that we give everyone enough time to be helped. But
yeah, you guys are very patient.
I get it.
My name is Jake. I'm calling from South Carolina.
Welcome, man.
What's your last name?
So I just wanted to... I'm definitely not sharing that.
Sorry, I had to go ahead.
No worries. So I just want to kind of share my experiences and air some of my grievances. So I had my first transplant FUT procedure when I was 27. Actually, correction, that's when I was 26.
Okay.
And it was with a doctor down in Florida, which I'm not sure if I should mention his name just yet.
Go ahead. Please do.
Okay, no problem. So his name was Matt Hubner.
Okay.
And,
all right. Good night.
I think it's still...
Stay phone. No.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it still goes by the clinic, natural transplant.
Are you talking about the guy who is probably the most world-renowned hair transplant surgeon in the world, according to Dr. Oz?
The one that wears the
absolutely.
headband?
Right, exactly. That one, exactly.
Okay.
And the one that was trained by whose name should not be mentioned.
Jesus Christ.
Stop it.
Right. So that procedure actually, like I mentioned, it was when I was 26. I kind of went into this whole world of, going for a transplant when I started noticing my hair falling when I was, I believe, around 21, 22. Went to a dermatologist, kind of gave me the options, hey, you could start taking minoxidil. There's this other drug called Propecia. You can start that. And he gave me all the side effects and all the potential things that could happen. So I hopped on both those things, and I continued to do them. Unfortunately, I was just not a good responder to Propecia. I basically had every side effect in the book. And I tried to stick it out for about 6-7 months, but I said, this is not worth it. I'm just not really functioning. And this was when I was 21, so I was still in college. It was just messing up with my studies.
Wait,
so I got
stop.
off that.
You're 21 years old?
I'm sorry, say it again?
You're 21?
Correct.
Okay. All right, keep going.
This is not the transplant. This is the Propecia.
Okay.
And minoxidil, when I started the minoxidil. So I got off that after 6-7 months because of all the side effects. And then I basically kind of just wrote it out, and I waited till I was 26 to get my first transplant after doing some research. And it wasn't terrible, I will say that much. Dr. Hubner is a great person. He seems very nice, but his skill set at the time, I don't know if it's improved, was not the best, I will say. So one of the things that I think went wrong with that surgery was that he gave me a very aggressive hairline, especially for someone that's basically a Norwood 6. But nonetheless, the results were okay. terrible. It wasn't like it was a butcher job or, you know, an obvious bad transplant that you could tell from a mile away. But, you know, naturally, as I got older, I started losing more hair. So I was kind of in that weird stage where I had only just the hairline going and then basically this big watermelon in the back of my head that was balding, or practically bald for that matter. So I decided again to go ahead and go with the next procedure and find a new doctor. So I went with another doctor down in Florida who, in this case, was actually, you know, part of the, I forgot one of the coalitions that, you know, not Dr. Huebner kind. And I went ahead and I did my second procedure with him. And after that, that was actually 2 years ago, which was another FUT strip. And then most recently, I got my third procedure. And I guess the point that I'm trying to get to is that, you know, honestly, after all these three procedures, I still don't have, which I would say it's been around somewhere a little bit over 6,000 grafts that they kind of moved from the back of my head. My results still look very shitty. It wasn't until my second procedure that they basically told me, you know, your donor area is basically average. It's about a 4 or a 5 out of 10. And it was all, I don't want to say all singles, but it was predominantly singles. And
I'll give you some insight. If they said your donors are 4 or 5 out of 10, that is not average. Now you would think that number 5 would be average in the scale of 1 to 10, but that is not an average donor. Your donor is probably significantly weak, or they use that, in my view, as an excuse for their failed attempts.
Gotcha. Well, I wouldn't say the second and third procedures were failed. This was with a good doctor, and granted, from my experience of the first one, I definitely, you know, made an effort to do my research more intently and, you know, find a doctor that wasn't going to do a butcher job. And it wasn't a total repair, but in essence, it was more towards, you know, let's make it look as good as we can make it at this point.
I think that makes sense. It's not a repair because your situation, if I heard everything correctly, simply stems from continued hair loss, right?
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
That's
correct. And how's the donor scar from Dr. Huebner?
So when I went to my second doctor, he said that he definitely went above the safe zone, and the scarring wasn't as good as he would have liked it. I don't have any pictures to show.
Because honestly, I don't always trust what doctors say about other doctors' work, because let's be frank, they're going to be critical of other doctors while they're you know, praising themselves. That's a very common thing. So, what did you feel?
Right.
How did you feel about the donor area?
So that's kind of where I'm at now. I actually had my third procedure probably 4 months ago. So
how did you feel about the donor area from Dr. Huebner before you went to the second doctor?
In terms of what I thought I had, or
no, the donor scar, the scar itself. How did you feel about that?
Gotcha. So I did see some after pictures that he took. It looked fine, but again, I at the time I wasn't too educated on this stuff. I figured, you know, this is a good guy. He's trying to do right by me, and you know, I thought it turned out okay. But again, as you mentioned,
I'm trying to circle around back to the issue of it being a repair or not. So your donor scar was okay. The hairline, while it was too low, you thought it was okay. It was fairly natural looking. Your issue stems from continued hair loss, because I think you said earlier on that you're not taking Propecia because of the side effects, right?
That's correct. So where I'm at now is basically after my third transplant, which I've had roughly 6,000 grafts moved around, but I'm still, I don't have density, and B, it's not even like 3/4 of the way back, and it's still very thinning. So I'm kind of stuck in a rut here because I obviously don't have any more donor to continue this.
So
And
all the hair
still
from transplanted, it only goes to the middle of your scalp?
Correct.
Okay. But you're bald
And
behind it.
Yeah, very much so. So,
Okay.
you know, I'm basically, where I'm at now is where I was before my first procedure, which is terrible. I basically kind of, you know, borrowed time, if we're going to look at it that way. I am actually 31.
Okay, so all this happened over the course of 5 years.
That is correct.
Okay.
So,
All right.
I mean, I'm at a point now where I don't know what to do because I don't have any more donor, and my results are subpar. You know, if you were to look at it, you would say, you know, that's someone who's losing hair, not somebody who had a hair transplant.
Right.
You know, it looks like a 4 out of 10 job, you know, and especially I figured, you know, after I do this and I invest so much time and money into it, after 3 transplants, you would think I would get some better results, but like it still looks terrible.
I mean, with 6,000 grafts in the frontal half, the density, relatively speaking, should be off the charts. But you know, all this, you know, to be fair, this is all based on what you're telling us, and you know, there's no photos involved. So feel free to send them. I'll look at them. But the donor area has only been hit with strip. Is that correct?
That's correct. 3 strips.
Okay. Are any of the doctors that you dealt with, are any of them, besides, we know Dr. Hebner is Heber, or whatever his name is.
Hubner.
I know the other
Hubner.
I don't know about the other 2. Are they supposedly proficient with FUE?
It wasn't 2 other doctors. It was first Hubner, and then the other 2 procedures were 1 doctor.
Okay. So does he have any reputation for FUE?
Yes, the second one does.
Okay. So the first thing I would do is get a second opinion. Contact clinics that are predominantly FUE only, or maybe majority FUE, and you know, look to the IAHRS first. That's the best resource to start with, and look at FUE specialists and just ask them, based on my donor area photos and video. I think you should send a video of you combing through your hair from the bottom up, so they can see the density. Review the video before you send it, and ask yourself this one important question: can I see the density? Right? Because if you can't see the density, they can't see the density. And get that media together, send it off to 5 FUE specialists, and see what they say. As far as how many grafts they can get, but more importantly, where do you live? South Florida?
I used to live in South Florida. I live in South Carolina now.
Okay, hop in a car and drive. You got some IAHRS accepted members in Atlanta. You got some in North Carolina. Hop on a plane if you have to. But
yeah, I mean, again,
it's like yours. You need to be seen in person.
Yeah, I get that much. You know, I figured at this point, I feel defeated because I've invested so much money into this and I'm not getting the results that I would have liked. And again, I understand that not being on Propecia is kind of a detriment to the whole process, but unfortunately, I'm just one of those people that didn't really have a good response to it. And I figured, with 3 procedures, I would get something at least that's semi-decent, which I don't think this is.
I kind of think that, and I don't mean to interrupt Joe, but I kind of think that, I think this is an important story. When you went to see your original doctor, you informed him that you couldn't tolerate Propecia, correct?
So, correct. This was when I was 21, and I tried it for 6 months, and I was getting all the side effects. And I thought, I'm going to give it some time. Maybe it'll go away. But unfortunately, the biggest one, which was the brain fog, did not go away.
Now, were you were you on it when you had the procedure, and or did you tell him that you could not tolerate it? That's my question.
So I was on the drug and when I was 21. I had my first surgery when I was 26.
Okay.
So I only was on the drug for 6 months. So there was a period of time there of years. That
All right.
I was on it. So I did make that note.
But did you tell the doctor that you had not?
Correct.
So you did. You said, I can't tolerate Propecia. I cannot take it.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay. And you were 26 when you went in for surgery.
Yes.
Okay. I would say that given any experienced physician would have been able to take a look at your scalp, use the densitometer, able to check for potential future loss, and given the fact that you could not use medication and you were only 26 years old, probably should not have operated on you. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, I would say that given all those circumstances, you were probably not a candidate for your first surgery, and that kind of led you down the road to what you're dealing with. Even if you went to a great surgeon the second time, he was working within limitations as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now hindsight's 20/20, but I think it's important for young guys who are listening to know this. So that's why I bring it up. Now you're dealing, and you say that you're defeated, and I absolutely get that, but just know there actually could be some hope, and it really depends on your next steps.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about that, and you know, honestly, after 3 procedures, and this is something I noticed today as well, which brings up another point, but this on one side of my donor area, you can actually see the scarring, as in it's widening. So I actually just emailed my most recent doctor who did the procedure 4 months ago to say, hey, well, you know, is this normal? What's going on? So I might even be looking at having to do FUE just to cover the scar. So I don't even know if from being able to do an FUE procedure, if I'll be able to both cover the scar and also get some more density and coverage in the crown area.
Well, tell me what your life is like now.
In terms of
how are you dealing with everything? I mean, are you moving forward with your life? Are you in a interpersonal relationship?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great segue. I mean, this has been absolutely dreadful. It's been a complete shot on my confidence. I mean, I go to therapy for this kind of stuff, and ironically, after 3 procedures, I still wear a hat most of the time because I don't feel confident walking around without it.
How has it affected your professional life?
It's rough, you know. Like I gotta admit, like when I go to work, and it's almost like I'm looking at other people's reaction of me versus just, you know, being worried about whatever task I have.
What do you do for work?
I'd rather not disclose that, but I do work in healthcare.
Okay, yeah, that's all I was asking for, not like the company or anything, but yeah, the type of work. So healthcare. So it means you're dealing with patients and colleagues. Okay, I get it. So
yeah.
Yeah. So, well, like I was saying, I think it's important that you you do talk to some other doctors, get a second opinion, third opinion, fourth opinion, fifth opinion, sixth opinion, but also, you know, because you have these side effects with oral finasteride, I have to ask if you've considered topical, because topical is effective for a lot of people,
right?
And the side effects have been reduced compared to oral for a lot of people. Have you talked to anyone about PRP, things like this? And before you get into that, do you have any hair on your head behind the transplant, or is it slick bald?
So I'll answer that in 2 points. My most recent procedure, I did have PRP with the procedure. And then something I haven't mentioned is I do the laser treatment at home, which could be complete bullshit, but it's something to do. So it puts my mind at ease that I'm doing something. And then your second question, so my crown goes all the way back, just above the scar. So you can't see the scar, but it's.
But my question is that area bald, or is there just thin hair there?
It's kind of in between. There is a little bit of hair, but it's not a lot. And I've been noticing over the past year and a half that it's getting progressively lower.
And,
So
caller, my hope is that you don't have to have an extra therapy session after speaking to Joe about this. By the way.
Well, look. I think the reason I'm asking this is because if it's slick bald, then topical will do very little, and other treatments will do very little. But if you got something there that another treatment can latch onto and maybe work with, then I think it's in your best interest to explore all options, all medical options, topical, PRP. PRP with surgery does fuck all for your growth as far as like your native hair. I'm sorry. It's like, I think there's just too much going on with your scalp for PRP to be effective, especially with one shot. Like, I mean, it's an ongoing treatment, not a cure. So you gotta keep going back. But I think if you find someone that has an effective PRP protocol, and you can only determine that by, talking to them and looking at very clearly focused and well taken photos, it might do something for you. But I think that if you got something for a medication to latch onto, I think a solid topical finasteride is the option to consider. I'm not a doctor, but it makes sense because you can't tolerate the oral. And try the topical and see what that does for you. And if you get any sort of hope with that, then I think, maybe an FUE surgery, if you got enough donor hair, to sprinkle behind the work you've had done would be helpful for you. Because you said your one of the big concerns that you talked about was you don't have the density that you were hoping for or that you would expect after 6,000 grafts. I get it. I really get it. I've been there. But at the same time, I don't want you to chase that density just for the sake of density, because that is a losing battle, especially at this point. The best you can hope for, surgically, is to get a sprinkling behind what's already been done, so you have more of a consistent level of coverage, higher density in the front, decreasing to lower density in the back, progressively less, so that no area of your hair loss actually stands out to people.
And caller,
caller,
I'm sorry, Joe. What was the last thing you said?
I was asking if that made sense to him.
No, that absolutely makes sense. And honestly, I did not have, even at 26, my expectations were basically to look natural as possible, but still have some sort of, adequate, procedure done. I knew that I wasn't going to get all my hair back. Although I will say, I went to your website, Joe, and it was very optimistic based on your results. I know your story is a little bit different, but looking at it, it seemed like we had more or less the same pattern when I started this. And unfortunately, I was just one of those cases that, didn't turn out as good as I wanted to. But like I mentioned, my expectations were very low. I just wanted to look as if I was naturally losing hair, but not to such a rapid degree.
Well, let me ask you this. This is taboo, especially on this show for some reason, and is in general. And I still don't know why, but I guess I understand why. But you are saying that you're having trouble living a normal life. You're saying that you do go to work. You're obviously have a profession, but you're not thriving in your interpersonal life. You feel very self-conscious. You live under a hat. Would you ever consider, if things did not work out, wearing a partial hair system, something very light, that could, if it was something that would look 100% natural?
It's something I've given a thought, but at the end of the day, I'm single, looking to settle down at some point. And I know it's not a deal breaker, but, how do I approach that situation with somebody?
Well, what you say is, look, I started losing my hair at a young age. I had some really bad surgery, and I'm unfortunately, in order for me to feel comfortable and live my life, I'm wearing this prosthetic. And I don't think anybody, especially in your situation, especially if it looks good, is going to give a shit. It's if you look fucked up is when they care. And you actually have more of a palatable excuse than the average guy who just decides to go for a hairpiece, which is sad to me, but at least you have a story.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely given some thought, and that's a nice perspective to look at. I don't think I'm there yet.
I just want you to know that I just don't want you to think that you have no hope in living a relatively normal life. And sometimes, in order to live a normal life, we have to make, all of us, have to make concessions and maybe do things that we never thought that we would be able to do. And then you realize when you come out the other end that, you know, shit, I wish I would have taken care of this earlier. I might not have suffered as long. And it's never going to be perfect. You're not in a perfect situation. But when you go online, you go on Instagram, you see a lot of women actually who are becoming a lot more public about their hair loss. And they're showing how thin their hair is, and they wear hair. And they kind of, you know, while there's a different dynamic there, I mean, they have the courage to do it. I don't see why guys shouldn't have the courage to do that. And especially, and frankly, if there's a woman out there, and this sounds trite, but if there's a woman out there that you meet who likes you, doesn't know about it, finds you attractive, and then you have to kind of give that reveal, if that makes them recoil, then believe me, if you had a real problem, like I'm talking about like a, you know, problem in your relationship or whatever else, you wouldn't want those women around.
Yep.
So that,
no, and I do see that. Yeah. I do see that.
So I just know guys who have had a lot of success, who have made that choice, saved themselves a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of angst, and there were some smoking women, and they're very successful guys, and that's how they live their lives. So it's a possibility that a lot of guys just don't want to talk about, but shit, it's there waiting for you so that you don't have to end up dying under a hat.
Right. And I mean, like I mentioned, it's something that I've considered. I think I'm not there in that. I'm still in the stage of grief where I'm kind of confused as to where this went wrong. And obviously, like I mentioned, I'm dealing with it at therapy. But, you know, it's frustrating because you spend all this money and you expect something better. And now it's kind of the universe telling you, hey, at the end of the day, you're screwed. You know?
Well, what affects me the most and why I continue to do what I do is that there are physicians out there, and I've said this countless times, who really know, even if they're not, if they don't have a lot of time on tissue, they know, oh shit, my fucking video card just froze again. Damn it. But they know that they can only provide you with so much. They know that as soon as you walk in the door. And they're willing to sell false hope to make their rent, to make their Mercedes-Benz payment, and to pay their fucking bills. And they're willing to put the lives of young men and women in tremendous turmoil and, in some cases, jeopardy just to make a buck. And that's the reality. I'm going to go fix my capture card. I'm going to let Joe take over.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that your case, you actually remind me of myself after my second or during my second hair transplant. I was 22. You're 4 years older than me, relatively speaking. But I that's when I asked my first intelligent question: what happens if I lose more hair? And what the doctor said to me is similar to what you went through with your approach, where you did tell your doctor about your finasteride issues. Finasteride wasn't out. Or Propecia wasn't out when I had my second surgery. So he told me, he looked me straight in the eye and he said, oh, you're not going to lose any more hair. And if you do, it won't be until you're like 50. And by then, you know, and then you can see me again. I was 22 years old. And he was telling me I wasn't going to lose any more hair. It put me at ease. I was like, oh, okay, great. I'm not going to lose any more hair. And you see my website. 3 years later, I was on stage, like when I was an actor in college, I was on stage and a pluggy hairline, a Norwood 4-ish, headed to a 5. And that was the period where people were looking at my hairline, not at my eyes. And people were making comments. And so when I hear this, and you're telling your story, like I get frustrated and I get angry because I've been there exactly where you are right now. You're 31. That's how old I was, that's how old I was when I first went to see Dr. Wong for my first repair.
Yeah.
Or 32. I just turned 32. Yeah. So I get it, man. I get it. I've been there and it sucks. But here's what I want you to your future shouldn't be controlled by your thought process of wondering where this went wrong. I tell you exactly where it went wrong. It went wrong when you got in the chair in the first place. Because the approach that was taken,
I see that.
The approach that was taken shouldn't have, like, you should not have had surgery. You were not a candidate. Right. Period. Okay, that's where it went wrong. So everything else after that is really not relevant, because that's where it went wrong. Everything else is just, it's contributed to the issue, but ideally it went wrong from day one. So, instead of thinking about that stuff, think about the options that you do have. And someone in the chat room actually mentioned something that does make sense. This did cross my mind, but I got off on a different direction. You could also consider maybe, and I got to preface again, I'm not a doctor, but maybe reconsider oral minoxidil, but on a reduced dosage and reduced frequency. And I don't know, I know you said that you listened to the show, but you may or may not have heard me talk about this, where some patients have had success, even with previous attempts of using it, having side effects. They've had success of starting off with a really low intake frequency of once a week. So what I tell people to consider is once a week for a month, like every Monday. And then if you're feeling okay, then move on to twice a week the next month, Mondays and Thursdays. Try that for a month. If that works out, then maybe try 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And keep increasing every month based on how you're feeling. And then if you start to feel like you're getting those side effects again, you got 2 choices. You can push through and stay the course, because a lot of times things do kind of balance out, or reduce to the previous month's intake frequency where you weren't having any issues, and just stay there, because something's better than nothing. Right?
Yeah. I don't know if at this point. Right. So just to comment on that, I don't know if at this point going back on finasteride will be beneficial, because I don't see how it's not going to regrow any hair. I know that. Will it maintain some of the hair that I have? Possibly, yeah. But honestly, when I look at it, it's also, I have to weigh the scales and say, realistically at this point, are the side effects worth it? Considering the amount of hair that I have and I have to maintain.
The point of this is that you might not have the side effects. That's the point of trying the topical. That's the point of trying a reduced intake frequency. Because if you can find a balance to where you're not going to get side effects, or if you do get side effects, they're more manageable because they're not as severe as your first go around with it, don't you think that's worth trying to save, what hair you have and preventing it from getting worse? I mean, you're 31 years old. You said that you got a Norwood 6 pattern. Guess what? You can go to a Norwood 7. Don't you want to maybe prevent that from happening? Doesn't that make sense?
The reality is that you, even though you don't see the hair, I mean, there is some dormant hair that could be. It's possible you could reverse the miniaturization of that hair, and you can increase the volume and the look of density, because you're going to have some increased density if it works well for you. So there is a chance of improvement. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Even your donor hair can be improved.
Well, absolutely, and the grafted hair it could be improved if it did miniaturize at all, because that does happen. But listen, you are not in a great position. You are 100% correct about that, but it's also not over. And I have known guys who have come back from exactly what you've come back from, whether they decided to wear partials, whether they found the right doctor to help them, with some repair work, whether they use some beard hair, whether they do have enough donor in their scalp donor supply to be moved via FUE. I have seen guys who felt that they would never look normal again or feel comfortable in their own skin come out of it. However, it's an investment of time, it's an emotional roller coaster, and an investment of money. And every procedure from this point on has to go perfectly.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Your next procedure, if you have one, is the most important.
Yeah, I mean, again, like my most recent procedure was 4 months ago, so I'm not seeing any growth yet. But granted how the last one went, which wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great either. It's just I'm not a good candidate for this stuff. So hopefully this goes a little bit better and I get some more coverage. Again, I don't have high expectations for any of this stuff because I'm realistically, I'm 31. When I'm 40, this is going to look normal for, all intents and purposes, because it does happen to a lot of men. But it is an issue at my age because I'm single and we do live in a superficial world or whatever. I'm not angry about that, but I do acknowledge it as well.
Of course.
And I'm just trying to find a balance where, I can still maintain my sanity and also, have some success in the dating world and, some peace of mind.
Well, listen, I appreciate that, and that's why I asked the question of, where, what direction would you be willing to go in order to kind of get yourself to a point where you can start to live again. And I'm glad that you're open to the possibility of wearing hair. And, like people say, there's a chick, she's pretty well known in the hair world, the Women's Hair Loss Project, and is her site. And she essentially will always let people know that it's kind of like a weeding out process as far as letting people know that they're wearing hair. And that's the reality. I mean, I don't believe there are any truly good and normal women, even hot women, who would reject a guy, especially if he's doing well in life and he's got other things going for him and he's attractive in all ways, except he's got to glue a little hair on. So, I think that's important. It's important that it's out there, not just for you, but for everyone who's listening, that should not be a deal breaker, not only for the woman, but also for a guy. Some guys, like Joe said, they will continue to chase this until they're tapped out, and then they'll live in a deep, dark depression for the rest of their lives.
I'm there, honestly.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to close up shop tonight, but I want you to call back. I want you to know that we are here to talk more about this. Your story is really important, I believe, because you are really today's typical patient is pretty young.
Right.
You started very young, and today more than ever, guys are being screwed up in much greater scale than has ever happened. So you went down a path. The physician that you went to, in my view, did not treat you in the way in which I think most physicians would treat their family members. Probably should not have performed surgery on you. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's going to be some light at the end of the tunnel. You're just going to have to you're going to have to figure it out as far as how you're going to deal with it emotionally. But I think that you can get to the point where you might be able to live your life and feel, comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the goal.
I wish I can say, hey, look, go to X, Y, and Z and you're going to get hooked up. Can't do that. That's just not reality.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking my call. Actually, if you don't mind, Joe, I'm going to email you some pictures just so I can kind of get an opinion.
Okay. Make sure you put in the subject line, Jake from the show, Dr. Hibner.
Okay.
Or Hibner.
Well,
he should probably put Hubner.
Whatever.
Listen, Jake.
The greatest doctor in the world.
Yeah. You keep calling, call back. Let us know how you're doing. And, we can help you just with our support. Maybe that'll help in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys.
All right,
Appreciate
man.
it.
You take care.
You as well.
Okay,
Bye now.
bye-bye. And for the guy in the chat room who wants to know about why I twitch, I have a fucking movement disorder, dude. Just so you know, don't feel guilty about it. It's something I live with my entire life. They used to call me Blinky. And then I'd have to kick somebody's ass until they stopped. But I have it's a motion disorder. It's called a simple movement disorder. It is akin to Tourette's. And sometimes you'll see it worse than others. It'll be my eye, sometimes my nose, sometimes my neck or shoulder. And it's something that I live with my entire life. Women find kind of hot for some reason. I don't know why. So, what am I going to say,
It's like,
I got all kinds of things. Yeah. You know what? I have a learning disorder too. But look where I'm sitting.
Look where I'm sitting.
Damn right.
Next
to me, for crying out loud. All right, give out the website, man. Oh, the websites.
Yeah. All right. Websites. Okay. We'll start off with hairlossexperiences.com, UK-based hair loss and hair restoration forum. Great owner of that website, very supportive of what we do, and he helps repair patients behind the scenes like it's nobody's business. Like he's the hardest working man in the UK for hair loss. Runs the forum hairlossexperiences.com. Go check it out. They're a big supporter, and we'd love it if you support them. Next up is bellycapelli.forumfree.it. It's the Italian hair loss and hair restoration forum. Clinics sharing results, patients passionately sharing their experiences. And again, the owner of that forum supports our message, lets us broadcast this program through his web property, and he's a big supporter and helper of repair patients as well. bellycapelli.forumfree.it. And finally, we've got international-hairlossforum.com. That is the French hair loss and hair restoration forum. Clinics sharing results, patients sharing their experiences, and the owner sharing our message, allowing us to broadcast through international-hairlossforum.com. Check them out.
Joe Tillman's personal website is hairtransplantmentor.com. That's everything Joe. And I think the caller Jake made a great point that, Joe is really one of the anomalies as far as the insane repair results that he has. So when people look at Joe and they think that, and that's why he made such a great spokesman for his doctor, and that's why he is such an incredible example and superstar in the hair transplant world, as is actually Spencer Stevenson, if you look at his hair transplant, because it's just amazing work. He was able to accomplish, his doctor, Dr. Wong, was able to accomplish what a lot of other doctors just cannot accomplish. And it was all kind of like the perfect storm. And that's why Joe is quite as handsome as he is right now. Joe, you didn't even listen. Oh, you did hear that. Okay.
I did. Thank you.
Joe Tillman's YouTube page is youtube.com/hair transplant mentor. Please, guys, this is where we want to house and air the live broadcast for a reason. And we think it's important to build that particular YouTube channel so that hair loss sufferers, guys who are considering surgery, who are looking at influencers, and I use that term loosely, to get advice from, they find Joe. They find us. I didn't want to, I have an old YouTube page. I'm like, you know what, fuck it. Let's just put it on in one space. So, guys, subscribe to it. Like the goddamn shows. Ring the bell so that you get notified that the show is live. And, at this point, I'm looking, let me see his page. How many subscribers do you have, dude?
11,600 and change.
It's fucking ridiculous.
28 likes today. That's good.
That's good, but that's ridiculous. You should have 40,000 easily.
I know. I could buy them.
Yeah. Yes, you could. I know that people do. However, there's a lot of people dealing with hair loss out there who should be following you and
I
subscribing.
got a question. If you're buying subscribers, how do you make money selling your products?
You can buy engagement as well.
I don't.
And they may not be making money selling their products, but they're somehow fooling YouTube into giving them money, whoever they are that are buying subscribers. Whoever these people may be.
Whoever these people may be.
TheBaldTruth.com, archives of this broadcast. Eventually there will be archives of this broadcast again. Do me a favor, go to iTunes, subscribe, even though we haven't been uploading a lot of stuff. That will happen eventually. Also, we'll be doing Spotify, so you can get it there. I want to thank everyone listening live on iHeartRadio, iTunes Radio, Stitcher Radio. Thank you so much for your patronage, for your calls, keeping us as popular as we are on those resources, even though we could be more popular. For a little hair loss show, we're doing pretty well. And I also want to tell anyone who's considering surgical hair restoration to do your due diligence. That's why I founded the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons about 20 years ago, to separate, at the time, the great doctors from the not-so-great doctors, and also the doctors who supported our message that surgery is a last fucking resort. And that's why there are doctors on the IHS who probably wouldn't have performed surgery on poor Jake. Period.
Yep.
Now, there's not a doctor on the IHS that doesn't have at least one unhappy patient. We actually had a caller today who had, he was happy with the result of the transplant itself, but was unhappy with the complicated scar that he dealt with. That happens. This is cosmetic surgery. Once you cross that threshold and you get into this game, you have to be prepared for anything.
Yep.
Even in the best hands. But if you're considering surgical hair restoration, check out the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. If you want anything hair loss, you want to learn about the basics of hair loss, have any questions, need more information, want to share information with loved ones about the process and what it's like emotionally to deal with the process, check out AmericanHairLoss.org. That's the website for the American Hair Loss Association. And our message forum is baldtruthtalk.com. Until next time, be strong. God bless. I gave out all the websites, right, Joe?
Yes, you did.
God bless, and thank you so much for listening. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the program, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Good night.